Welcome back. You're still watching ATM Business and Atlantic Television Network right here in the city of Port Harcourt. And of course, I still have my Ace China in the studio. Hello, my Ace.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
And yes, I have Mr. Ugochukwu in the studio. Welcome.
Hi. It's nice to be here again.
Okay, so we are still talking about the 753 duplex estates that was confiscated by the government via EFCC. Now the question, or the big question on the table is, should the government sell or retain? Some realtors are saying that the government should retain and use it as an apartment or housing facility for the ministers and other top government officials, and can also be used as a hotel or a place to lodge international guests. Now, my ace earlier had said that he would rather the government sells it up because of some stuff he mentioned. Of course, we'll go back to that. But tell us, Mr. Ugochukwu, what's your take on this?
It's something that came about. There's a lot of thing about this real estate that was recovered by government. There's a lot of stories around it. There's a lot of things from the litigation part. But if we want to look at it from a business perspective, which is key, for me, I think government has no business in business. Like, we all know it's like a cliche, but we understand that government actually has business in business. But the business that government has in business is how to make businesses thrive.
Exactly.
Now, government works as a regulator. Now, if you carry that real estate and say government should manage it, it will end up as gifts to friends and people, political. I'm just telling you, that's a fact. That's the truth about the country we live in. But if government decides to say, okay, this is business, manage this, this is what we expect to get out of this from you, the private sector knocks in and does what they are supposed to do, because as far as I'm concerned, the private sector is profit-driven, and that's what drives an economy. Government, that's especially in a climate like ours, where leadership has been a real bane for us all this while in this country. We've not had leaders that really look at Nigeria like a true project. Like, what are we going to do with Nigeria? Because as far as I'm a Nigerian, I know that this is one of the greatest nations on earth when we talk about human index and all that. And instead of turning all these blessings we have into real blessings, you see a lot of Nigerians in public discourse talking about how the fact that we are so plenty is a problem. And that's another problem. When you come back to the fact that it's a real estate that was recovered from stolen public wealth, what do you do to that public wealth? You reinvest it back into the economy. And how do you reinvest it? It's by partnering with private partnership. You regulate them based on the fact that if this is what you expect for this kind of place to be, do you want it to be low cost? Do you want it to be for a certain level of people that can afford it? But what matters at the end of the day is that this place is profitable. And it's consistently profitable. Because profitable doesn't mean that it makes money the first time. That's not how we say business is profitable. If a business consistently makes money and becomes a brand name that people can associate themselves with, that's when the business is profitable. So that's the question. Can we take away bureaucracy? Who I sabi, who I know sabi? Question is not about what we should do with it.
Okay, so the question is not whether Nigeria should sell or retain.
Whether Nigeria will happen to it.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I don't know what that means, Nigeria to happen for. I don't even want to have the conversation. But then again, you said something about profits. If this thing is handed, if the government retains it, from what the realtors have analyzed, if the government retains it and hands it over to a private sector to manage, the government will be saving over 300 million naira on a yearly basis. Isn't that profit enough?
That depends on how profitable our government has been. Part of the most important thing you have to understand in business is that business depends on value. Value is what brings money. Now, let me explain to you, we've had a lot of federal housing estates. How did the past election, the only candidate that talked about value when it came to reforming the government setup, like the civil service and all that, I think it was P2B, and he said something that really struck me. He said something about turning the civil service into hourly work. That's after you've probably trained them and given them the necessary skills. Turning it into hourly work so that you earn as you work. That way you're getting back value. That way you don't have people being distracted. It was the first thing that actually struck me for a time. And part of the challenge we have in Nigeria when it comes to things that are managed by government is that there's no value. As I can tell you, there are a lot of ministries in Nigeria that monies are made available for them in the budget, but there's nothing they give back to the economy. And that's not value. That's not the way forward when you do business. So when you have to think, because if you're executive officer of a business, government is business. Now, do you bring profit into this business, or do you leave your country in debts at the end of the day? It's a decision you have to understand, you have to make. And that's what your legacy will be built on. And that's what you'll be remembered for. So at the end of the day, it's very important, to be a comfortable person, to be able to send your children to good schools, to be able to have a home you can go back and rest in. But is it very important for you to own the world? That's the problem. That's a challenge, a question that's personal for every and every other person. But the point is, if you create billionaires, how do you create them in an economy? If you create billionaires that take something from the economy without creating something for the economy suffers. The idea of making money is about creation, is about making multiple sources available, is about having money in circulation.
Creating value.
Exactly. And value is the key chain. If you look at River State, I saw the last things that came out from VAT, how much the states were generating, and only Lagos had about 2 trillion naira. Yeah. Rivers was second, about 670 billion naira. Now, when you look at that and you add all the other states, Lagos still doubles them altogether. And I know confidently from a business perspective that River State can be a 1 trillion naira economy for a start every month. And that's how you really generate jobs. That's how you really make money in circulation in the economy. That's how you make money become powerful. Because when you have money in people's hands and they can spend the money, that's how you have a middle class that balances an economy. And that's the middle class appreciates value because they want to pay, they want to spend. And how do you create an economy that pays and spends? Is when you create value. So there have to be a value chain in everything. So that's why when I come back to the real estate thing, government has never ever created value in anything they've done. And the problem, the quagmire in Nigeria is that even when government talks about privatization in Nigeria, is it realistic privatization where things go through the process? And when you're even trying to do this, the people are in contact, they understand what's their benefit from these things. I go, no, we just come up and see a lot. We've seen a lot of privatization when things end up going back to people in government. They buy it back. I can tell you, but we're on national TV.
Yes, please, we're on national TV.
Yeah, but there are people that have bought back national assets to themselves for nothing. For nothing. Okay, I can give you an example. We decided to privatize the electricity sector, when it comes to distribution. Okay. And I can confidently tell you, I don't need evidence, that the transformer in my street, we bought it. But for it to be installed, what they call them, the people that give us light in Rivers,
PHEDC.
They made us sign a document that a transformer we bought belongs to them. They should come and prove me wrong. I'm just trying to tell you all these kind of things. How can you become a distribution company when you do not have money to invest?
Okay,
I'm trying to tell you what I mean by value. Then where's the value? How do we get the value? So there are I can go on and on and on. And until government decides to be a proper regulator, we'll always have problems when it comes to all these things. We'll have all the public debates we want to have and nothing.
Okay, so from everything you've said, you're saying if the government decides to retain it, to use it as national asset, it's a ruse because it almost never works.
Yeah, because the point is, what's the value? Why? Okay, you're saving that money. The things you were paying it for, what was the value?
And the truth is, there's one truth you've not spoken.
Okay.
I'm going to say 3 things that will conclusively conclude this subject.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a world expert in housing, and I can tell you from the pictures we see of these duplexes, they are not already finished.
Exactly.
I would assure you without equivocation that if the government is trying to save 343 million naira annually by allocating these houses to their officials, the money that they will use to finish these duplexes, the loopholes in bureaucracy and the loopholes in government, what they will gulp to get these houses to be livable will be 2 times that 43 million, and you will still not see that value reflected on ground. Mr. Ugochukwu just said something, that it's a question of value and politics. I tell people I'm not a politician, I'm a valutician. So it's a conundrum between valuetics and politics. Okay. I can tell you simply, if the government wants to make this as valuable to the people as possible, look for a road around that same Lokogoma that will be beneficial to the people. That the cost of building that road is the same thing with the cost of that house or those buildings. Look for a contractor, a construction company, and award the road in exchange for the building, so the government doesn't spend a dime to build that road, and the people will get themselves a beautiful road to drive on, and the person that bought the buildings with the road will have himself a beautiful estate to add value to and make profit from. If at any point of the circle or the value chain government is involved and there is involvement of government, there will be loopholes. And Nigerian loopholes has cost us so much. It's not as if our budget hasn't been adequate. It is implementation of those budgets. So it is the implementation of this value into the government that will help or not help the economy. And there are two things. Number one, if the government sells it, what assurance do you have that that money coming into the government coffers will be used to better the life of any one Nigerian? That's one question. Number two question, if the government retains it, the money the government will pump into making that retention work can buy 10 of that estate, I can assure you. So
let me ask, which is better, selling it off and then using the money, like you said, not to help any Nigerian, and we still have to spend over 300 million naira annually, or retaining it, spending a lot of money to finish it, and like the government or like the developer is saying. The question is this the only land? If the government wanted to build more than 757 duplexes and they have the capacity to do it, there is enough land in the country for them to build even 7,000. What have they done? We have 22 to 28 million units of housing deficit. The renewed hope housing agenda that was flagged off in the nation promised to deliver 50 million housing units. So why the obsession? Why is it only here that they will save the government money? Why would building a fresh one from the start not save the housing situation? So if we deceive ourselves with the euphoria that something good can happen from a new place and that you can build transparency in non-transparency and you can plug a good fruit from a tree that hitherto hasn't delivered any good fruit, we deceive ourselves. The most important thing is, as I've told you, if we want to harvest value, one of the simplest things that every Nigerian can relate with is road. Value the estate, exchange it for a road, somebody will come and build a road and take the estate. And then we'll have our road until Jesus comes. But any process that involves why housing, I think since 70s we've not had a successful housing project. Yeah. Why? I mean, houses have a minimal threshold that the houses will not withstand. So when all the kickbacks and all the settlements and all the interest are settled, you don't see the housing project come to limelight, because it has gone below the minimum threshold that will make the houses stand. So let's not assume or presume we have a new government in place and we have a new civil service in place and we have a new structure in place because 753 duplexes were seized. If our government housing business was doing well, the government should have had over 500,000 units and wouldn't have to bother about this 753.
Sorry to interrupt you a little. I just wanted to come in. I like citing examples.
Good.
When it comes to things like this. You've been to Festac Town, right?
Yes.
Festac Town was amazing. a lot of money spent. It was actually a town properly built, planned, with boulevards. You've been there.
Yeah.
And what happened at the end of the day? Imagine if Festac Town, after Festac 77, instead of being managed the way it was managed, was given to a private entity to manage it. That would have been one of the most beautiful places you go to. Because if you go to Festac Town and see how planned it is and how it goes. But when you go to Festac Town, what you meet is a lot of bad roads, a lot of, and that's the challenge. And a lot of the properties have even, why is even striving to today? Because a lot of the properties have been re-owned. It's no longer government properties.
Yes.
It's been, so the private people, one way or the other, even though it's not organized, they string themselves together. They have things they have. But it just basically goes to show you how, if you go to Lekki and see most of those estates in Lekki or in Abuja that are privately managed, you love to live there because it's not magic. It's not like anybody. If you go to the suburbs in other countries, suburbs are where families live. That's where you want to settle down, and at least that's where it's affordable for you as a middle class earner. Why is our society different? I've mentioned something on one of your programs before that we live in a society where I grew up in Port Harcourt here. I used to remember coming back from my primary school in Jerry. None of the houses used to have fences in the 80s. I used to go to Adedo ADB's compound. He was a director of NTA then. We used to go out pluck fruits and all that, and the dog would chase us, and it was really nice, spacious, beautiful, with all the greenery. But today, every Nigerian lives like a prisoner. It has to show you the reflection of our society. We can't even live healthy, intentionally. That is, we have to fence off our house to get fresh air because of security. So everything boils down to everything our government has touched has turned to ashes. I have to tell you that, as bitter as it sounds. So if they are not successful, because I've seen Nigeria progress in the private sector without government interference. I can give you a lot of good examples. Our music industry, the movie industry. Imagine that it was government that were growing those industries. We would have never made any step forward. I'm just telling you, if they want to prove me wrong, they should do something otherwise. That's the only way you prove somebody wrong.
Yes, because those days when the government was into movie productions, like Things Fall Apart was an NTA production.
Yeah.
It was world class.
Yeah.
But right now, can you point at one
anything the government does
that any government-owned parastatal
can do
entity have done that is world class? And I don't know, I have to mention this example because I've been so impressed by the governor of Rivers State with the two housing projects he has launched so far, which is the Tough City project. It's a PPP with a private company that has delivered a proven track record. The people building that Tough City are the people that built golf estates.
Okay.
So they have a track record everybody, even the blind, can see. They recently awarded a second PPP, the Newport City in Eleme.
Okay.
It was given to Rainbow Heritage, the people that built Reef Court Estate.
Okay.
You can see, touch,
there's a
and
plan.
see. So
yeah.
And they handed it over to them. They only contributed their land equity and the regulation equity and left the people to play in their space, profit driven, and they do what they need to do. So that's what government should be doing in business. Number one, Taff is not even a Nigerian. It's because he built golf estate that the government can see.
Yeah, because he did something that could attract.
Thank you. It's a meritorious award. If the government looks for the best real estate company in Abuja that has the best name at stake and asks them, can you build a road? And they say yes, and they come and announce that name, because the name has estates already standing, proven track record that me and you can relate with, the government will score a huge goodwill equity from the populace, because they've already put this seizure out there. The next thing an average Nigerian is saying is that, is it by seizing the house? Before you know it, private individuals in government will pocket back these houses. So they can score a huge confidence and goodwill card by making it as transparent as they have announced it, and getting someone that everybody everybody knows that these are non-political players,
Okay.
and these are real estate industry players. Awarding a road in the FCT that will affect those, like I was told this estate is in Lokogoma, affect Lokogoma people, and the value of that road by empirical, by visual empirical analysis is value to the house, and then sell it off and celebrate the commissioning of the road, and when the road is finished, the inauguration, and people will hail.
But do you know, sorry, before, do you know what that's...
We don't have, our time is up. We have a show coming up at exactly 5 o'clock. It's been amazing having, I think I would love to have the two of you on my set again, the same time. I love this. I love this.
I love his cerebral vibration.
Thank you, my ears. It's amazing having you. Thank you. So Gochiku is beautiful. We will take this conversation outside the set, but this is where we wrap it up on today's edition of ATM Business right here in the city of Port Harcourt on Atlantic Television Network. You can follow us on all our social media platforms as displayed on the screen. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Wendy Aguma. Up next is ATM Politics with Victor. Stay tuned.